have flaws. You know, this idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're always politically woke and all that stuff. You should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities.
Yep.
People who do really good stuff have flaws.
Right.
People who you are fighting may love their kids and, you know, share certain things with you. And I think that one danger I see among young people, particularly on college campuses, Malia and I talk about this. Yara goes to school with my daughter. But I do get a sense sometimes now among certain young people, and this is accelerated by social media, there is this sense sometimes of the way of me making change is to be as judgmental as possible about other people. And that's enough. Like if I tweet or hashtag about how you didn't do something right or used the wrong verb, or then I can sit back and feel pretty good about myself because, man, you see how woke I was? I called you out. Let me get on TV, watch my show, watch Grownish. You know, that's not activism. That's not bringing about change. You know, if all you're doing is casting stones, you know, you're probably not going to get that far. That's easy to do.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to In Time. Yeah, we don't need a producer. We're good. It wouldn't be In Time if we didn't have a sound screw up. Oh, well, good. Or at least I got to say, I prefer it.
Well, let me tell you about my daughter, Malone. Well, let me tell you about my name's. Well, let me tell you about my name. Well, let me tell you about.
Oh, dear Lord. I prefer the airing.
I told you the Democrats, they're no good. I told you not to listen to Nick. They're being very mean to me.
Yeah, he watches the show, does he? Yes. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sorry.
Oh, dear Lord. Oh, well, thank you all. Welcome to In Time. How are you, Vox? How have you been?
I am doing good. And yourself?
Well, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, burning the candle at both ends, but when am I not doing that? So I'm a little tired, but you know what? Things are going good.
We're all doing that, you know?
Yep. Well, and we
got the COVID fire under our butt, quarantine fire under our butt, and family fire, and that's just
yeah. Yep. And we're gonna cover it all. And I guess COVID is, of course, as always, doing something new. So we're keeping an eye on it. And we've also got a show where I think this is going to be starting a new series on like just utterly insane people in the news. We're going to call it something other than utterly insane people in the news. But as we've been talking about,
we'll call it Ode to Florida Man. we'll call it Florida Man has escaped.
Speaking of Discord, so if you want to come find out, what's going on and hang out with us and catch, and we're gonna do, I think we're gonna be on the Discord afterwards. I think this is gonna be a long show, but I plan on hanging out on the Discord later. Are you gonna be free after the show?
I'll be around.
Perfect. So we'll be down on the Discord. We'll drop a link to that in just a minute. But the Discord is we're there every day, and we've got constant news and discussions on all sorts of topics. So it's a great place to hang out. And we've also got coming up next Wednesday, Dr. Richard Carrier is going to be back, and oh God, I love having him around. Yeah, he's great. So he's a regular
I
guest.
have not had the opportunity. So I'm really excited to hear from him because, as you know, well, I don't know if you do know this, right? But of course, I have the opportunity to regularly listen to Bart Ehrman, and of course, one of the better debates on the secular side was Bart Ehrman and Carrier discussing the history of Christ. So I've obviously been and had the opportunity to interact with Bart Ehrman, but never Richard Carrier. So it's going to be it's like putting together the two sides of the thing. Right? It's like, you find that last puzzle piece, like, oh, yay.
Oh, Ozzy and Carrier was a delight. We had the two of them on for the first time together, and on philosophy of religion, which was absolute delight. So we've got Richard Carrier coming up on Wednesday to discuss Bayesian and the Bayesian method of Bayesian analytics. Yes, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just found it interesting that you wanted to have a discussion on philosophy of religion without any religious people. How leftist of you! Don't you know that that's a microaggression?
Oh Jesus, where's the mute button?
Where is it? I mean, did you create a? We can't talk about philosophy of religion outside of a safe space.
I'm gonna mute Vox, and we'll just.
I don't know if he meant to deafen me.
Alrighty, and then I think I may have hit the wrong button. I think I may have muted myself.
Yeah, just you just
okay.
See what happens. It's called karma, right? It's
oh dear
karma.
Lord! Oh, don't even get into. Oh, we don't have any of that religious garbage on here. You know what, Vox? So all right, well. Okay, so I think I'm not going to undo that anymore. So we got Richard Carrier coming up not this Wednesday, next Wednesday to discuss Bayesian analysis. Looking forward to that one. We have then we're going to be discussing the grievance study. So this is part of our series on woke, which we had discussed, and I'm glad that we're getting back into. But we're going to discuss the grievance studies project, which is a whole bunch of studies that were completely bogus, that were submitted to universities on the grounds that perhaps if you just have the language done right, and if you just hit all the politically correct keywords, you could get complete and utter horseshit in through these universities. And we were going to discuss that one, and then we're going to have finally our show on the ontology of gender after that.
Finally.
I know, it's been a while.
Yes, you're finally getting around to it, right? It really has. It's been a long time in the making. I'm going to have my whiteboards in the back, and we're just going to be a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been taking this one seriously. This was, and it just came off of a discussion with Ozzy that I wanted to have, and now I think it's going to be a big show. So thank you all for joining us and for continuing our series on woke. So before we begin today, it's been very difficult to get footage from the event that we're going to discuss. It was a modern event, so everyone had cell phones. But what's ended up happening is a lot of footage has been uploaded to YouTube, and then it's been taken down for any number of reasons. So footage that I first saw available even 6 months ago, is no longer available, and most of the footage is gone. What we've done is we've drawn from an HBO documentary, several other sources, and a number of the YouTube sources and other sources on Reddit and a few other places that are, in fact, still up. We've also drawn from a brilliant 3-part documentary by Mike Nayna, and his videos are linked in the description below. So we have demonetized tonight's episode. We are not going to be, it's not going to be monetized, and if there is any buddy who has a question as to everything here should fall within fair use, but if there's any question as to that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Please reach out to us before issuing a strike so that we can resolve and see what the issue is. Having said that, while we are demonetized, we actually still can take super chats. So if you want to chat with us, and I think it's going to be a long show, and if you want to make sure that we get something, or just want to support the show. Yeah. So, super chats are always available, so please don't hesitate to do that. So, with all of that said, and there is, in fact, going to be, we got some footage here, and I want to make sure that we get all of that. Because there's going to be a lot to go through tonight. So, we're talking tonight about Evergreen College. Evergreen State College is a liberal arts college founded in Olympia, Washington in 1967. It is an extraordinarily liberal school with an open curriculum designed by each individual professor. Students actually stick with professors for multiple terms, and even in some cases, multiple years. It's in the forest on the southern end of the Puget Sound and is known for its pristine environment and its integration into nature, including a saltwater beach, 1,000 acres of forest, and its graduates include Matt Groening, Michael Richards, as well as a number of Oscar winners, politicians, governors, and so on and so forth. So, let's see here.
It has a storied past, is what you're trying to say.
Oh, has the well, what I'm trying to do right now is actually, for some reason, the intro isn't up, or the first video that I would like to show is there it is. All right. So, and then we have $2 Sinister Porpoise, including snarky super chats. Don't disappoint me. Yes, yeah. The princess of snark is here. So, let's actually take a look at. That doesn't look like. Oh no, you know what that is. So let's do that. Right there is Evergreen State College, and
It's beautiful.
let's see what they have to say for themselves.
How do I describe this place? I find Evergreen is my home. It's a sense of a feeling that I can be comfortable for who I am.
Love the trees. It's very outdoorsy, so it gives you that fresh feeling, you know? I like that.
An Evergreen student is looking for something that isn't as common in the educational structure in America. They are searching for more independence, for a different cadence in life.
All right. Now, inspired by the Douglas Turner Ward play, in which black people don't show up for a day. It was also the basis for a movie, Day Without a Mexican. There has been every year in April a day of absence where minorities absent themselves from the school. Staff, administrators, students of color don't come in so that they can highlight their contributions to the community by not participating for a day. Again, this has been happening since the very inception of the college. In 2015, George Summer Bridges became the sixth president of Evergreen State College. He created a new committee, the Equity Council, whose job it was to identify inequity at the university and come up with plans to correct it. Professors were told that this council would actually only really make sort of minor changes to improve things, that there was not, it wasn't expected that there was huge systemic racism or anything like that, but that they would try to find ways to streamline and make things easier and more inclusive for minority students. They were also told that they would have a say and discuss the entire process from beginning to end, and that it would all stay within the mission statement of the university. Instead, the council came up with a radical idea. In 2017, they proposed that for their April day of abstinence, oh God,
It's a liberal college. There is no abstinence.
There is no vox pluribus. There are certain words that I just get tongue-tied. So, Vox has kindly truncated her name for me. Hopefully, wow. We'll try to pretend that I can speak English.
The voice. I am the voice of In Time.
There you go. There you go. So, rather than have minority students and staff not show up, they decided that they would ask white people not to come in an effort to show to them what it's like to be excluded and to not be welcome. Now, there was some question as to how serious they were about this. They were serious about the proposal, but the question is, were teachers and students who were white, were they free to show up or not show up? And the general consensus was that this was actually, they said, we're asking you not to come, but really there was immense social pressure. Now, it would be illegal to say that they can't come, but the question is, were they actually in any real meaningful sense invited to come or welcome to come if they chose not to participate in this program? Nonetheless, the idea was that white professors and students would not be welcome at the university for one day. Biology professor Brett Weinstein, having already butted heads with the council before over another issue, which I'm sure we're going to get into, objected strongly to this. In an email, which would later become infamous on campus, he wrote to the board and said, quote, "There is a huge difference between a group or coalition deciding to voluntarily absent themselves from a shared space in order to highlight their vital and underappreciated roles, and a group encouraging another group to go away. The first is a forceful call to consciousness, which is, of course, crippling to the logic of oppression. The second is a show of force, an act of oppression in and of itself." So the argument that he was making was that, in essence, by asking white people to not show up, the people who were asking this were, in fact, themselves becoming oppressors and using the very tactics to which they objected. This plan was supposed to be approved by the faculty, but instead was approved by the council without oversight, and then the president enacted it. People who refused to go along were ostracized and under immense pressure, eventually to resign by the students of the university. As Weinstein ended one of his classes, more than 50 students showed up to discuss with him why he objected to that particular program. This is, let's see, this is some of the arguments that started and the following protests. Let's listen in. All right, now this is, okay. This is the email that he sent.
I'm afraid of having a nuanced opinion because I'm afraid that
All right. So, so that was, that's the beginning. That's just the beginning. So, Vox, any thoughts so far? Yeah, it was 2017.
I mean, look, I'm a liberal, I'm a progressive, I'm a leftist, whatever terms you want to assign to me. Those people are insane. That girl who's sitting there saying, like, Brett Weinstein, incited, like, white supremacists and things like this. Now, Brett Weinstein didn't incite white supremacists. The students incited white supremacists by their actions, right? By the absurdity of their actions. And when the girl said that, they're protecting this cis white male over their students, it's like, you know what? Brett Weinstein, as far as I can tell up until this point, was a liberal. It's not possible that there was any I don't accept that it could be the case that there was any systemic racism at one of the most progressive colleges in the entire United States, right? And the idea that these students think that they needed to go root out this racist, it's embarrassing to see this. And look, to an extent, I understand that they're children, right? And everything like that. But it's just, this is the kind of behavior that makes it difficult for people like myself to have intelligent, nuanced discussion. As I don't know what this young lady, Kristen, is getting ready to say. She says she's scared of having a nuanced position. I don't know if she's going to go with that, but it makes it very difficult when you get the oh, well, you're just the this, or you're just the that, and you say, well, no, that's not liberals, but then they point to stuff like this, and of course it's true on both sides, but Jesus, I'm just sitting there listening to these people, and I'm going, y'all have no idea. You live in a bubble. You've just got no idea.
Yeah.
Those are my preliminary thoughts.
I think this is. There's a lot of things that I find already actually rather disturbing about this. I mean, the first of all, they're calling for him to be fired because he wrote an email, and in that email, what he said was he agrees with the principle of inclusion, and in fact, he has a very long history of working hard towards that goal, which we're going to get into, because he's not actually just some random biology professor. But having said that, none of that appeared to matter. The fact is, because he disagreed with the methods and said that you cannot bar white students from the university, and that this, in fact, creates what he called a actually, let me look up a cycle of it wasn't a cycle of revenge. Let me just get into because I want to find what he had said here, that you get into an endless cycle of retribution. That he thought that this was more about retributive justice, and what happens is, of course, whites end up feeling like, hey, why do you get to treat me this way? And you end up empowering racists because they get to say, see, and they get to point to it. And he ended up going on Fox News and speaking on Fox News about what happened. Fox jumped all over this. A lot of people didn't see this unless you watch Fox News. They were the only major media outlet to cover this, which is why it was a shock to most people.
Of course.
They covered it reasonably well, believe it or not. In fact, in many cases, they seem to have underplayed just how bad things got there. And I'm not entirely sure why, but nonetheless. But what ended up happening was racists started to threaten the students. And racists started to call and say, why are you guys, doing all these terrible things? And long story short, they, of course, blame Weinstein for that, even though, and we're going to get into why that has other problems with it. But yeah, so they're asking him to be fired when all he said was he objected to what they were doing. He also said that this was so dangerous that this could end up destroying the school. It could become insolvent. Students wouldn't want to attend. They would lose all their funding. This could literally end the school. That's what he said. So now this is a young woman who was one of the students of Weinstein, who also started to get targeted, especially the minority students who defended him. This student was somebody who had been in a number of his classes and felt that he was being unfairly treated and called a racist when that was not his position. This is her on that issue.
I'm afraid of having a nuanced opinion because I'm afraid that my opinions and I will be stigmatized.
All right. Again, all he did was.
What does she want to do with this guy? Who does she think he is? And she's like, Brett Weinstein, Adolf Hitler, basically the same thing. Never mind the fact that Brett Weinstein is a Jew, which makes him a minority. forget all that. No. We need to weed out the racist people like Brett Weinstein in his spare time runs around in a red, Grand Wizard outfit for the KKK. I don't know if you knew this.
Oh no, well, I guessed.
So
I
gassed, right? Yeah. All the nooses that he's got hanging outside his door, something like that. Oh no, wait, those are probably the threats from the students that he was receiving for having the audacity to say, "Reverse oppression is oppression." That's his crime. His crime is having the audacity to say, "Reverse oppression is oppression."
Which
That's
even
what this
if
all boils down to.
Even if you disagree completely and wholeheartedly, he was always willing to have that conversation with people who wanted to have it with him and talk to him genuinely about it. We're going to show him attempting to have that conversation about what his opinion actually is. And we're going to see what happens there. But what this starts to look like to me is you start to see this. You start to see the fomenting of A, mob mentality, B, witch hunt, and C, essentially a lynching mentality. So what we're going to see now is pieces from his engagements. This was he had multiple engagements, but this one was one where and students. He was asked later, why was he willing to engage at all? Why not just get the fuck out of there? And at one point, he got cornered, and he could not leave voluntarily. He ended up downplaying it because he didn't want there to be violence. And he says at the end of this clip, hey, look, there was no violence. That's all. That was my goal. And that's why I stayed, because I felt that had the ability to. Yeah, this is all 2017. This happened in a span of just a few weeks. And we're on day 2. So this is his discussion with some of the protesters who have now cornered him outside of his office. I'll be on a sec.
This is an audio recording from May 23rd, 2017, and it comes from the end of the day of the first day of the Evergreen protests. Now, this day opened with Brett Weinstein's class getting protested, and then it ended with a very large meeting on the 4th floor of the library, and here's some footage of that. You can see how packed this room is. There's only one exit, and this entire meeting it opens with George Bridges, the president, giving a statement, and then there's a lot of accusations and yelling and chant. And Brett Weinstein is singled out and not allowed to speak.
I'm reading the Bible in the room and we're fucking done with this. Like, they haven't answered shit. So, like, how about administration, George, when do you get the fuck out? Like, we're done. Like, we're done. No justice. Fuck. He said, I can't. No justice. Fuck peace. No justice. Fuck peace. No justice. Fuck peace! No justice! Fuck peace! No justice! Fuck peace! No justice! Fuck peace! Fuck you, George! See you way out! Hey, fuck Brett too. He's not to get fired. Fuck you, Brett! Get out of my face! And all you other students here perpetuating white supremacy and racism, you guys get your ass out of here too. This is college. No, state of it, the real one. Okay? Now, we have a disagreement maybe about how to get there, but we have a disagreement about that as an example. I'm being portrayed as somebody who wishes to preserve my own privilege. It's frankly absurd. Why is that? Well, for one thing, my privilege involves coming from a population that's been persecuted for more than 1,000 years in the place where I think.
Oiga, Walt, listen. The experiences of persecution are extremely, different.
I'm not saying they're the same. I'm saying that the idea that I want to preserve privilege is absurd. That privilege has worked against my ass.
Listen, one, when you act the fool, it reflects poorly on all the other kids. So why would you do that? You gotta own your shit. for everybody who you've hurt, but also ownership for yourself and your own people. I don't think you understand. I think that you need to make an apology for emails that you sent and how they affected students on campus. Because regardless of what you think the truth in those emails were, those emails had a very direct effect on people, and you need to own that.
Listen, I believe I've heard what you have to say. I don't believe you've heard me.
I just think you come in and come.
Okay, those emails do not say what you think they say.
Then why is there this pervasive feeling on campus that they do?
Well, you have studied your history, and you know that there are processes that take people over, right? There are things that happen at a witch burning, there are things that happen at a lynching, there are things that happen...
Do you think this is a witch hunt against you?
Well, I think this is a witch hunt, and I think I am the designated witch for the night, yes. Okay.
Yeah, he's made himself a target because he spoke out against something that nobody's really willing to talk about.
And I would, thank you, I would point out that a key feature of this dynamic is that there can be no visible diversity of opinion, which means that anybody who expresses another opinion, whether it be right or wrong, has to be stigmatized sufficiently powerfully that everybody else knows to shut up.
Exactly. No, I don't think that there's not that silencing aspect. I think what...
Yeah, they're not silencing anyone. So,
there's no difference between this. There's no difference between this and the build-up to Charlottesville.
No, I don't think. Well, I find this entire thing rather disheartening in as much as the fact that you see students doing it means that, and I mean, I think I've always known this. I think most of us who've studied history know this. It's ingrained in who we are as a species. We have a mob mentality built in us. We like the feeling of what I'm sorry, however Obama put it earlier in the beginning, this idea that, it's like, well, I called somebody out, I went and did and we feel good about it. And it's not, whether or not we got it right is actually almost a distant second to just the notion of doing it. Which is very terrifying.
You didn't wait a second. You mean to tell me that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King didn't just, walk up and say, "Come on, y'all, stop messing with them black folk," and then go have some pizza? You mean they did more than that?
Well, and Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. worked his ass off. Now he gave the line, "Justice too long denied." Justice too long delayed is justice denied. So, when these students talk about the time it tacked is now, we've been waiting too long, which, by the way, they're kids. I don't know how long they think they've been waiting, but, they have no idea what things were like 100 years ago. So, Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was always talking about always moving forward, about the urgency of this moment now. But nonetheless, he spoke with everybody. He was willing to speak with members of the KKK and sit down and talk to them. And Daryl Davis is a man. You've seen the Daryl Davis clip. I sent you the Daryl Davis one a while back. The black man who collects Klan robes, and he goes to Klan rallies, and the very first robe he got was a Grand Wizard who surrendered his robe after 2 years of knowing him, and it took 2 years. But that guy did more in that 2 years than these kids did in this period of time, where they think they accomplished so much, and they actually knocked it back because they gave more ammunition to the racists.
Yeah, I mean, we need to point out that, so there's a couple things I think that are going on here, right? First of all, we have this idea that periods of time that were just a very short period of time ago were actually long ago. So, for instance, people my age, as older millennial, think about the 90s in terms of just a couple of years ago. No, it wasn't. It was 30 years ago, right? But 30 years ago, really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that long ago, right? And so when we talk about, say, like, all, sort of boomer gen, of African Americans. The civil rights movement, like what? That's when they were in college, right? I mean, these people are, just now starting to retire, right? It wasn't that far ago, right? I can respect that the black students at Evergreen State University have experienced racism, and I can respect that the white students want to feel like they're doing something to address these issues, right? Because as we said, like, this is supposed to be a very liberal, progressive college, but there is no systemic racism at Evergreen University. Well, there never was. There never has been. Right now, outside, right? Like, let's not, like, Seattle's got its struggles. Right, it does. In any major city, of course, you're going to be able to find racism, and it's a governmental operation, so there's going to be institutional. In fact, redlining is still, the marks of redlining is hugely prevalent in the greater Seattle. And so I can respect that. These black students have experienced racism and things like that, but they've not experienced it at Evergreen State. It's not. And they haven't experienced it from Brett Weinstein. Right. What Brett Weinstein did was very admirable, I think. He actually stood up and he said, no, this is not something, this is not how we behave. Liberals, he behaved like a liberal. Well, what does it mean to behave like a liberal? Well, what it means to behave like a liberal is to be openly skeptical. That's what it means to be a liberal. We are people that are anti-intellectual. We are not people anti-conversation. We are not people that are anti-hard discussion. We are not anti-critical thinking. And we are certainly not mob mentality. But that's here. We get a mob, right? This is a mob. And so we get the lady that's been very prevalent, fuck Brett Weinstein. We need to root him out. What? Well, if we talk to that girl, right, she would just have no clue. No clue, right? These are obviously privileged white people. And a school that has given opportunity to some minority people through empowerment or affirmative action or whatever, which is fantastic, right? And then you've got these privileged white, babies come up and say, oh, I recognize the microaggressions. The person that says he keeps doing this with his hands, that's not a microaggression. And when they say something like, "Oh, you're doing this," it's a microaggression. You prevent us from having an actual discussion about what microaggressions are. Right? Me doing this, me engaging with you, me talking with my hands, which is something that I do. And it's oftentimes, like, I've been told to stop. That's why I just, like this. But that's not a microaggression. A microaggression is when a white person comes up to, say, an Asian person, and they say, where are you from? And the Asian person responds, oh, well, I'm from, I don't know, Kansas or something. And they say, no, where are you really from? That's a microaggression, right? So it's like actual hidden racism, and microaggressions are the things that we are dealing with. I think probably is the most prevalent form of racism that exists today. Other instances would include, say, something like when you're talking to a black person that's educated, right? And you say, you're very well spoken. You wouldn't say that to a white person, right? It's this idea that if a black person is, eloquent and educated, they're emulating white people, right? You sound so white. I'm sorry, what? You sound so white. Oh, no. Being intelligent and eloquent is not a quality of being white. It's a quality of being eloquent and educated. Or when we tell somebody, you're in America, speak English, right? As if I came in and said, oyata ekeskafling on himonikenness, this is somehow, an offense to you, right? Speak English. These are microaggressions.
Yep.
Asking someone to drop the tone of their voice so that you can have a calm conversation is not a microaggression. So they just, like you said, they take the whole thing back. And Evergreen has really been like a central. Evergreen caused a lot of shockwaves throughout the political zeitgeist. We're still dealing with this to an extent because there are still conservatives who will bring up, oh, well, look, we always told you they were the green-haired, dyed, hippie, feminist, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, yeah, but those are kids, right? Yeah. But those kids have made it immensely difficult for us really just immensely difficult.
The two things that I want to understand a bit more. So first of all, although actually I do want to say, so Evergreen was the most diverse school in the country. Now they're going to talk later about, okay, it may be, but it's not the most equitable school in the country. And what equity means, I think they equivocate a lot on that. That's a nice word that lets them really bounce around with the reality of what's happening. And the other thing is that what seems to happen is there wasn't a huge problem of racism there. There is a very large problem of racism in the society in general. And what they seemed to do was take all of their life experiences and take all of their objections to everything that happens in society and blame Brett Weinstein for it and say it's his fault because he's the asshole who said we can't ban white students from the university for a day. And that's all he said was we really should think about that as a policy. That doesn't make things better. In fact, it makes things worse. And for that, he's now the racist son of a bitch who has to be kicked out. It's interesting. Then they just put on they're going to talk a lot more about all the terrible things happening at Evergreen State. And somebody's going to point out that they keep asking, what's the terrible stuff that's going on at Evergreen State? And I want you to hear the answer. That should be coming up in about 10 or 15 minutes. I want to play a little bit more of this and see there's one piece here that I think is really interesting. This is actually a 20-minute clip, so I don't know that we're going to play the whole thing, but I want to play another couple minutes of it.
What? Put yourself in my shoes for a second. Imagine sitting in that room, listening to people chanting.
Dude, you laughed the whole time.
I did. I laughed.
You didn't give a shit about anything.
He didn't. How
he
do
never
you know?
laughed at all.
You don't know me.
I fucking saw you.
Okay.
You were right in front of me, dude.
Okay. You think you know what you saw.
Dude, you're gonna use your rational bullshit. Fuck you, dude.
And you're gonna be irrational about it.
Probably.
Well, then there's no resolve. If somebody is going to be irrational in their emotional response, then there is no way for a discussion to be had.
So people's emotions don't matter.
Actually, they do, but if you keep them under control, then you can actually do something to circumvent that.
Also, all the white people that want to talk at him, like he's not disposable to you. You're white, he's white, work through it together. So don't be like reactionary about it. Like, you're not doing shit.
Well, the first thing is I would like actually to be understood for what I actually am, whether that's right or wrong. And the fact is this climate does not lend itself to that. It's not healthy. It's not, frankly, you cannot have a college that functions this way. I understand.
You can't have a society that functions this way.
That's absolutely right. And the college is actually essential to society, and it's coming apart at the seams. And I'm not saying it's coming apart over nothing. What?
Baruch Hashem, let society fall.
Well, let society fall. You can't have society fall on a world with 400 nuclear reactors that have to be managed by somebody every day of every week. Society has to deal with its shit, no question, but it can't come apart. We have to deal with this properly. Stuff at stake. Take pieces. Society comes apart. 3 billion people are going to starve instantly. You don't want that. I don't want that.
What's that think about letting people of color ask white people on campus?
Wait. Say it again?
So you were the person that said that, like, people of color shouldn't be asking white people to leave campus for day about it.
What I said was that there's a
I
fundamental.
wasn't talking to her.
Yeah. And I'm trying to answer you in good faith. What I said was that there is a fundamental difference between a population deciding to absent itself from campus and a population deciding to absent another population from campus. I still believe that that is true. That is not anti-black, it is not anti-POC, it is pro-equity. I stand for equity. Nobody understands that because they've read those emails through a particular lens. You are looking for evidence of racism.
I don't think you understand what equity is in the context that you're using it. It sounds like you're talking about equality.
You use the word phenotype in a biological way.
All right, I'm going to mute it and let it keep going. You can read the text in the bottom, so people who want to read the transcript of it can still read it. But I love how she's lecturing him on oh, you don't know what these words mean, and let's talk about the ad fuck society, and we'll let that. Oh dear Lord. So yeah.
You know, I have a daughter. She's 20. She's gonna be 21 this year. She is a junior at university. I'm very proud of her. And she has been involved in a protest-like situation on her campus. The Westboro Baptist Church, for some reason, decided to come to their university and protest. I have no idea why, but there they were with their signs and their God hates fags and everything like that. And so she calls me because she wants to know that I'm proud of her, of course, because she's a child and she wants, her parents' affirmation. So she calls and she knows, of course, that I have certain values and things like that. And so does she. And so she calls and she says, look where I'm at, look who's here. And she, she wants to show that she feels like she's doing it. And she was, right? And the difference between the behavior of the students at my daughter's university versus the way that these students were behaving towards one of their own college professors is, night and day. There was some shouting, right? But for the most part, the irrational behavior came from Westboro Baptist Church. So they would ask a question, and the Westboro Baptist churches would answer with God hates facts. They would ask another question. You're going to burn in hell. Right, and get all these responses. So finally they did an organization thing. And what they did was they called the band. And the band came down and they said, now every time you don't answer a question, the band's going to make noise. Right? And so they would ask a question. They would answer God hates fags. And the band would blow their horns. And it was quite fantastic. And that was symbolic. Right? About oppressed voices and things like that. This is just a cacophony of noise, right? This is the Grinch prior to Christmas Day going, oh, the noise, and thinking that he knows best. These people have done irreparable damage to a very unique place.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I had never heard of it really until I heard of this and learning what it was like before all of this happened. So what they're arguing about now is that they've said he needs to apologize not for what he said, not for what he intended, but for how other people took it, and that he is responsible for how people take his words, and that he needs to apologize for the injury it caused, even if it was not intended, and even if he was not properly understood. This, of course, if it were true, all of us would have to defend ourselves to everything because people misunderstand us all the time. You can't get through a day without somebody being offended by something you say, usually because
now
they
I do want to put just a little emphasis on something right there, right? Because there is a place where we can find common ground. So there is an idea, right, that in philosophy of mind that you cannot be wrong about what you intend as it relates to an attempt at communicating an utterance. So I may say to you, I want pizza, And you may understand that as my dog is wet. But my intention was to say to you, I want pizza. So even though I failed to communicate to you, I did have an intention, and I can't be wrong about that. But what I also can't be is upset at the misinterpretation, right? So to the extent that this applies to this situation is that when we say something, right, we will intend it one way. But how it is interpreted is as equally valid. So an example of this would be just yesterday. I was in conversation with a younger lady who I have a lot of respect for, and there are some colloquialisms that I use, including the use of the word hun, H-O-N, which is of course short for honey. And I have always used this as a term of endearment, right? And I've never understood it to be derogatory in any way, shape, or form, coming from what I perceive to be a position of being a woman to another woman. And so she scolded me. She said, yes, I agree with this, that, and that. And by the way, please don't call me hun. And so I was taken aback, right? So I sent messages to a couple of other women that I admire and respect their opinions, and I asked them, is calling somebody hun, is that derogatory or something like that? And for the most part, they all said, yeah, it's condescending, especially when coming from another woman. Now, I had never looked at it like that, right? Now, I am not responsible for the fact that they took it that way, but I do have to understand that they have like when it comes to feeling slighted or feeling aggressed at, it's the person that feels the aggressed at that we generally give the preference to. So for instance, if we were to say, a black person says, well, what you said was racist. So, well, I didn't intend it to be. So, well, your intention doesn't matter. To me, it was racist. So, okay, right. So we have to accept that. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation about whether or not it was actually racist or not.
Yes.
It's that we have to accept that they took it as such. And then that's where we are liberalism, where we start to be openly skeptical about things, and we request the same thing from them. We say, okay, well, I didn't mean it this way. Why did you take it this way? What do you feel this say to you? Things like that. And as we have that conversation, we will find that we are, able to foster a healthier society. That's the key thing that's not taking place here, right? And this is where I champion, like I would say, Brett Weinstein's done a fantastic job. Brett Weinstein is saying, look, and I think he says many times, I'm sorry you took it this way. Let's have a conversation about it, right? And he's requesting this conversation, right? He's acknowledged that they are upset. He doesn't understand why they're upset. He feels like they have misunderstood him, right? And unlike some people who I think would be well within their rights to say, piss off, the lot of you, right? He stood there and calmly for days and days attempted to have a rational conversation with these people. Now, whatever you think about Brett Weinstein currently, right, he was the exemplification of what it means to be an academic in this situation. And the students were the exemplification of closed-minded, bigoted behavior. They became, in this moment, the emulation of everything that they claim to hate. And notice how easy it was.
Yeah. Yep. I
by the way, one more thing. I brought this up, and so I wanted to talk about some words here. So inequality, equality, equity, and justice.
Let me interrupt real second. We have a $2 super chat from Sinister Porpoise. It feels like it was 451 degrees Fahrenheit that day. I love our audience. I really do. Sinister, thank you very much for that super chat. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you. So you were saying, Box.
Yeah, so let's just briefly talk about the words that are being used, because the lady said, I don't think you're talking about equity, you're talking about equality or something like that. So inequality would be considered something that's like unequal access to opportunity. So let's imagine there's a good example, right? Let's imagine there's a apple tree, right? You have two people standing at the bottom of an apple tree, right? And one side of the apple tree is covered in apples, and the other side of the tree has like just a couple. So the tree's bent over, leaning one way, right? And then there's one person standing under the tree on the side of one person, and apples are falling to the other person, and not where the tree is bent, right? And not to the person on the other side. That's a visual expression of inequality, right? Equality would be, say, providing at the same tree, right, two ladders to climb up to get the apples, right? But the tree hasn't changed. The tree's still bent over this way. It's full of apples on this side with not a few on that side. So that's equality, right? They both are able to climb up to the tree now, but the resources haven't changed. The location and the allocation of resources haven't changed, right? Equity would be providing a taller ladder to the person on the side where the tree is bent over to reach the few apples that are available on that side, right? And justice would be taking some boards, writing the bend in the tree, and equally distributing the apples all across the tree so that everybody can get at the apples. Now, of course, somebody might say, well, you're talking about equality of outcome here. No, I'm not. Right? We fully recognize that people have different talents and different struggles. And so justice is making sure that, in the words of George W. Bush, no one is left behind. That's just
in the words of George,
so
not
in the
actions, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Miss me yet?
Yes, I do. I really do. It took. Trump hadn't even been inaugurated, and I missed him. But yeah, I can't believe he used that line. I was like, that means there is some self-awareness of what his presidency was actually like.
Yeah, and basically, so what we get is what Brett's trying to explain here is that he wants the tools, the assistance, and the opportunity to be equally distributed amongst the population. That's what he wants, right? Or I'm sorry, he wants to make sure that there are like custom tools available to identify and address inequality, right? That's equity. So when we identify inequality and we create something addresses that, right? It doesn't take away from other people, right? Like that's where this like, oh, you're taking away from me mentality. No, this isn't a pie, right? If we're not taking a slice and somehow you have less slices. This isn't a pie, right? This is just a picture, and all we're doing is recognizing that there's not so much pain over here, so we're going to add some pain. We're not going to take any away from here. We're just going to add some over here. That's equity. And of course, justice is finally when everything is even across the board and everybody's ladders, are such that, they all have equal access to everything. And there you go.
All right, so this is wrapping up now, and it's wrapping up with a student who was saying she was very uncomfortable with the entire exchange and that she actually had never met Brett Weinstein and wanted to come because he seemed like a nice guy. And what he was saying, what her perception of him as a good guy did not comport with the emails as she understood them. So she had just come to him for clarification, and felt that her conversation with him, where she was genuinely interested in understanding his position, got hijacked by a whole bunch of other students who came in and started attacking him. They also attacked the notion of where he had suggested that, you could get through this with rational thought. And they said, well, I've spoken like a scientist, but not every discipline and not everything in the world is rational. They said, well, only the things that you want to work are. And it ended up inspiring an argument over whether, as a scientist, he is capable of understanding their problems. So, and I think we're going to end up getting back into that. But I'm going to play another clip now. So this is a staff meeting where the staff is asked to come on board with the concept of, this is slightly out of our time. This is actually right before the events of this started. And then we're going to get into the events afterward where during the students talking to him, the police are called, or the campus police are called, and they arrive in an effort to ascertain what is going on. So this is actually going to be two clips. The first one is a staff meeting in which they are asked to come on board with the concept of barring whites for a day from
We want to give some sense of solidarity and provide safety outside. Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go. Hey hey! Ho ho!
Fuck you, George. You don't want to hear a goddamn thing you have to say. You talk so fucking much. No, you shut the fuck up.
These white ass faculty members need to be holding him and all these people accountable. We don't need to be doing all things.
I want to say, we have a problem with racism here on campus. And we have a problem with other folks not being treated the way that they should be treated. And this is going to continue on my watch.
And
it feels
he
the
doesn't
same
give
we're
examples.
asking for a paradigm shift. We're the Evergreen State College. We do diversity well. We're leading the nation in diversity. But one thing we're not leading the nation in is equity. And what that means is that some of y'all sitting in these seats and some of y'all sitting in these seats have had experiences that ain't been right.
How does it mean that?
The cost is too high.
That's not equity.
And the implications are too much.
He's speaking in such vague terms. You have no idea what he's
It's like speaking ready-made for TV.
This campus is going to stand up for what it espouses to be. It needs to say enough is enough.
Because it is no longer acceptable that our mission and vision only applies to a few. So as we think about this,
people are delusional.
We should be thinking about how are we unscrewing the screws, and it will take many hands to do this, to unscrew the structure of institutional racism. We have a beginning to do this. And our hope is that we are inviting you to come along. We're going to do it. Don't get it twisted. But we would like for you to join us on this road, on this journey. So we invite you. We want more conversation, and we know there's much more work to be done. We invite that conversation. But if you want to be an obstructionist, work on your own.
Who are these people talking to?
We're going to get on a canoe. Okay? And we're going to get on a canoe that's going to sometimes
you're
have
going to hear
fierce waves.
ocean sounds playing. I didn't insert that. They were playing that in the audio. Yeah.
And sometimes intentional or unintentional extra rocking of the boat.
This is serious,
because
Fox.
we're not
This is serious.
on the same page or on the same heartbeat. So if we can bring this canoe forward some and make sure it's a straight canoe. If we need to have our canoe, and John, let me know if this is not okay. Can it be 3 wide? 2 wide. Okay, so we got to make this happen. Oh, hold on 1 second. Hold on. The senior administrators, you have to ask for permission and commit some things before boarding the canoe. So can we step back out?
So now he's all proud because he's demanding that the staff do a purity test. They have to ask permission to get on the canoe, which is to get on board with the program that they're essentially forcing on everybody. Oh, well, okay.
I mean, this is like what I would imagine if you got like the worst rated actors in Hollywood ever, gave them the worst written like dirty cop script ever. I like what is this? Like this guy, the way he's talking, I need you to agree to some things. I'm going to overemphasize everything that I say. And if you laugh at me, it's a microaggression, which means you're a racist. Like, I can't take these people serious. Like, I cannot take these people seriously, right? And that's a big problem, right? Because there's no abhorrent inherent racism at Evergreen State University, college, whatever it is, camp at this point. I don't know. Like they're going to college to learn how to make underwater baskets.
I don't. This is utterly insane.
I'm watching this, right? And like, you know me, like I'm an open-minded individual. I'm watching this, and I'm just like, like if I was in that room, I would just be laughing. I'd be looking at this guy, and he'd look at me and he'd say, "Vox, why are you laughing?" And I'm like, "You're a clown." I mean, the only thing that you're missing is the red hair in the nose. Well, I mean, it's like you're trying out for like a really bad TikTok. Like, what I need you to do is step in the canoe.
Shatner, yeah.
But before you get into the canoe, there's things that I need you to do. I need you to agree that you are white, and white is no longer right. So, step out, and let's go for a ride. What?
Yeah. All right. It gets goes.
And so there's a way in which there's a sea of people engaged in a shared delusion, and then there's a few people witnessing the delusion and isolated, unable to exchange words or anything. That sense of being alone in a crowd is profound, and that really was how that meeting felt.
And in a crowd of people who are supposed to be your colleagues.
Yeah, who are sleepwalking.
The people who fought for our freedom were not cops or wealthy white city officials or gun-toting libertarians or glad-handing politicians looking to get our votes. They were hustlers, injection drug users, people who lived on the streets. They were black and brown butches, queens, and trans women who did not have the option to decide that their struggles were just about gay rights. The people who fought for our freedom took care of each other, creating safe places to be themselves when the white gays, the white middle class assimilationist motherfucking gays took over the movement later with their assimilationist goals, kicked them out because they wouldn't act grateful for the scraps given to them by the racist politicians, racist police forces, and racist housing policies. Yeah. Despite the persistent efforts by many white people, including so-called allies, to turn the conversation about race away from a conversation about black life, away from a conversation about police brutality, and away from a conversation about the white supremacy that lives and breathes within every single white person standing here right now, I refuse to shut my mouth and let white people set this agenda.
I was at this meeting, and there was a particular faculty member who was instigating much of the tension around race at Evergreen. And she was there. She tended to go to these things. And we were discussing the question, there were all of these allegations about white supremacy
at Evergreen, and every so often somebody, sometimes it was me, sometimes it was somebody else, asked about, okay, where's this white supremacy? Can we see it? Can we evaluate it? And this faculty member said that, she said, to ask students who are suffering from white supremacy to tell us about the instances of white supremacy is itself racism. And she said, we must stop asking them, because we are inflicting harm on them, asking for evidence. And the phrase she used, she said, to ask for evidence of racism is racism with a capital R. And as she said, racism with a capital R, she leaned forward in her seat and she looked directly at me. And I had been leaning back in my chair. There was no opportunity to ask questions in these meetings. I sat up in my chair and I said, are you talking to me? And she said, yes. And I looked around the room and nobody said a word. And I said, you know, at some point, you might want to check into whether or not my history lines up with the accusation of racism, because you might be very surprised. And if you don't look into it, it's going to come back to bite you. And the chair of the faculty said, Brett, this is not the place to defend yourself against accusations of racism. And I said, that's fine. Where is the place? And then the faculty member who leveled the accusation says, you should not expect a place to defend yourself against accusations of racism. And I looked around the room. The president of the college is sitting there. The provost of the college is sitting there. Nobody says a word. And I said, whoa.
All right. So, and then the seminar, the lecture or the speech that you saw that she was giving was one of a number of them. It was included also how Asians are responsible for white supremacy and how Jews are complicit in white supremacy. Yes, Asians. So as the riots got bigger, they started actually holding seminars and sessions and group meetings, and the topics were Asians causing white supremacy and how Jews were enabling and or responsible for white supremacy. So what you just saw there was one of the ones. As this starts to expand, and they actually are holding these kinds of events. Now this is now a meeting in which this is actually, I don't think it's the meeting that he gets cornered. Yeah, this is the meeting where he gets cornered.
No, not me, please.
No,
I'm
listening.
Go! Okay. I am committed to equity. I'm as committed, I believe, as anyone on this campus. I happen to disagree with other folks on this campus about the way there. Okay? But I'm not an unreasonable person. I'm not uninterested. I'm not uninformed about history. I know the implications of these things. I have arrived where I've arrived from a different route. I've arrived there through academic study. I know why racism happens.
We lived racism. We don't have to study it to understand it. We
understand.
live it.
And the issue is you think scientific proves everything. What about all the racist scientific theories they had about black people for so long? Explain that.
May I answer?
No.
It is not your
Listen. You're going to listen.
You asked me a question. I would like to answer.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Everybody see us got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Everybody see us got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
Oh, we're not dancing? No. Oh, okay.
Seriously?
White people! White people!
So the white people are lining up to protect the black students who are going to get assaulted by the police officers, because all police officers always assault all blacks when they see them, and they just immediately assault them. So.
Nah, you ain't getting through shit.
Please. Listen, do you understand? History could pivot in this hallway right now. If
Oh my God!
Listen to me. Yes, I know. History could pivot in the direction of the values that you are standing here for.
Yeah, resign.
What?
Resign.
I'm not resigning.
Okay.
If I owe an apology, I will deliver it.
Wait, hey. Wait. Excuse me. So wait, hold on. Can I get this straight? You were coming over here for Brett Weinstein because you were.
I got information.
You thought
cornered by students.
Oh, okay, but not over here. Okay, maybe you should have gotten better information.
I only get limited information.
Oh, okay. Well, we were in D. It's a very small campus.
You also need to apologize to Naima and Rashida.
Deliberately push past white students to target people of color. We deliberately asked white students to be a barrier.
All right. So what this is now is this is the postmortem on the incident. 2 white students were injured when the police pushed past them. The students had formed a barricade to, quote, protect the black students because they felt that the police were coming after the black students. The police have been called because somebody was concerned for Weinstein's health. He could not get out. He would have to go through. He was in a hallway. There was no other way out. His back was to the door, and there was just you had to go down a very long hallway to get out. Somebody had called the police. They came. He said he was okay, but 2 white students were injured. And what the narrative now is even though the officer said they were there to protect Weinstein, even though there's actually a recording of that call that's why they were there, what they're saying is that they were there to get at the black students, quote, get at, whatever that means. That's why they were there, and the students were injured protecting them by forming a human shield of white students. That's why you heard whites, 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 whites. So all the white students virtue signaled by forming a barrier to protect the black students from the officers who were there to murder them. So let's hear a little bit more of this. Yeah.
Yeah, this idea of pure.
Oh, wrong. Yeah, that's wrong.
I was Obama. You know the relationship that black and brown people have with the police. They made an effort to push them out of the way to get to us when everyone was doing the same thing. So to me, that feels like targeting black and brown people. And you can't tell me that that's not targeting black people because we have the evidence on camera that they literally pushed white people out of the way to attack black and brown bodies.
Please send me that video.
So I want you to really sit with that when you go home and you kiss your white kids. Remember that you did that to us. You stuck us out in the cold. Your silence is white violence.
Yeah, I was waiting to say that this whole white silence.
Your silence is violence.
Understand that.
But we have no.
Sitting
But we don't have any legal way to.
Your silence is violence. Your silence is violence.
Like that's violence.
I was going to say, I don't understand how the diversity and equity plan was presented as this thing that people had to get on board with at this campus if you got paid by this campus, and then then it's turned around and then you get to send out all these emails about it. It just doesn't make sense to me why he's still here if this was something you had to get on board with.
I believe the equity plan is a great plan. I also know that every organization, and every school I've been a part of, there are always people who don't buy in. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, they have an opportunity to speak their mind. Even sometimes they do it in the most.
That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. And how do we stop people from speaking offensively? That's a challenge. There is this concept of free speech. Mm-hmm. Now, if it constitutes a hate crime, if it's targeting a certain population, then we got a point of leverage.
Can there be? Is there any way to word some sort of language about a commitment towards really targeting STEM? And a lot of this, like everyone needs all of this, but
regarding targeting
sciences as far as like education about like these kind of issues, because like if that's the place where it's like happening like the most consistently, I think there needs to be something written down that's like even extra.
Yeah, science's fault.
Yeah, and science is where there's the most amount of racism, which is actually, we've already heard that like a couple of times where the students say, listen, if scientists are refusing to, they're trying to think critically and rationally, and that's the whole problem here. You can't think rationally about racism, you just have to go with your gut, and that's how you respond. This is a liberal fucking school.
It's an embarrassment, is what it is. It's an affront to everything. This is not only. I mean, like I don't mean to be long-winded, but you know what? This is not only an affront to liberalism. It's Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are rolling over in their graves right now. Right, they really are, because they had purpose, they had intention. These people don't even know what they want, right? They don't even know what they want.
They want the school to solve all their problems. Like all of them. They're like, there's racism in the whole world, solve it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, they don't even know what racism is. Like, the point is, like, you don't even know. And so, okay, somebody said, oh, I don't need to know what racism is, I live it. Well, to an extent, yeah, sure, okay, I'll take that, right? And I'll take that under advisement. But when you are at the most liberal, diverse, I mean, you're outside climbing trees for credit hours. Don't talk to me about that kind of thing,
Which is, by the way, true. That's not a hyperbole. That is actually, they did put that. So, okay, so what they've also got here, what's interesting about this is they said repeatedly, it's free. You don't have to participate in, if you're white and you really want to come to school, you can come anyway, despite we're saying it's voluntary, but we're asking you not to come. And this is the first acknowledgement from the president that not only were they really applying pressure and saying you really did have to get on board with this, but they were targeting people who weren't doing it, like Weinstein, and saying we have to find ways to apply pressure to get them to do that. To do it. So let's finish.
They're going to say some things that we don't like, and our job is to bring them on, or get them out. Right. And what I hear us stating that we are working toward is bring them in, train them, and if they don't get it, sanction. Right.
Bring them in, train them, and if it doesn't take, sanction them. And then he says to the protesters, I want you to hold me to that. Right?
That's not appropriate. You gotta put your hands down. You know you gotta put your hands down.
Yes,
laughing like it's a joke to them. It's a fucking joke to them.
And let me remind y'all, that's how whiteness works. Whiteness is
all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to skip because I want to go to one other thing. I don't think, okay, so this was the footage of he was asked to come to a meeting, and then as soon as he arrived there, as he's going down this long hallway, all the students are there, and he receives an escort, and a student actually follows him and escorts him. There's a rather contentious, discussion here, and then what I actually want to go to now is the students decided on the next day that they were going to take the professors hostage. So they barricade themselves in the library. They storm a meeting that was for a professor. I think they were receiving tenure, or they were getting some. So the students just grabbed the cake, grabbed the food, left, and somebody described it as kind of a Lord of the Flies kind of thing. It's just sort of no, they just show up and so let me hold on a sec. And then they hold the staff hostage and begin discussing how long they're going to hold them and what precisely their demands are. After this, only one.
2, 4, 6, 8. This time you cannot escape. 2, 4, 6, 8. This time you cannot escape.
This is all security right now. Students are taking furniture and putting it in front of the doors to block police from coming inside.
My concerns as a person, I can't speak for everyone, is that this
the work that needs to be done is happening today, and that everyone's safety and health is concerned. So I'm working on making sure food and water is being brought to everyone, and that this is happening on a timely manner. So I don't need to hear anything else, but I want y'all to know an update about things. Do y'all need anything at all? The people who are in this room watching this happen, are y'all clear?
This is like, I'm imagining like in the 60s, like it's like hippie teachers going, oh yeah, absolutely, like this, like heck yeah, like I'm down with the Panthers.
So the priority is that they stay in that room. If they aren't in that room, then we did something wrong. So you'll need to watch that door, watch all the doors, watch the windows. You need to keep eyes on them. And somebody needs to go in that room real quick to make sure that there's no way in that room for them to leave. That's the #1 priority until we get our demands here. The second priority.
Yes, let's kidnap people. Let's commit a felony on camera.
If they were to come, we need to know that information.
Now they're preparing for the police.
No harm will be done to you, I can guarantee that. But by leaving, it's sort of showing the school that you don't care about the black and brown lives here. And that's harmful to the environment here. And I don't think that's okay. If you want to leave, go ahead, but you should not, under any circumstances, leave this environment. It is y'all's job to stand up for the students, and it's y'all's jobs to be here and represent the students. And by representing the students, I mean all of them, including the black and brown students. And I think it is irresponsible for you guys to leave.
I want you to bring in bitches. I want y'all to bring in bitches. And talk about homeless get shot every day. Don't need white people. Sick of y'all niggas not gonna say what's up, man. Got the right to say. You can't say it, man. You do the same. Unless y'all take every gun from every cop. Ain't nothing you want to do.
There's like totally nothing to see here.
It's complete chaos. The protesters disrupt a faculty meeting, which professors were being celebrated for being emeritus. The protesters literally disrupt the meeting, take the cake, the retirement cake, and march out of the room.
We need extra hands to bring food to the students. Anyone?
It's full Lord of the Flies.
Baby got fancy meeting cake. You want some cake?
I saw footage of that faculty meeting that I'm not sure I had seen previously, recently. And it is not the most dramatic footage that came out of the riots, but there is some part of it that must be seen to be believed.
Why are you here, and how can we listen to you?
With your ears?
What are you doing to address the crises that are going on against black and brown bodies and has been going on for years? For those of you who've been here for 20 years, you know this is not new. This is why you can sit in this room and eat cake. To answer your question, we're here to make sure that you're with us. And for you not to forget who's the reason that you're still doing your job.
The rioters take over this faculty meeting, and there is a race to the bottom amongst faculty members to virtue signal to these rioters so that they can join them.
They're here. Like, we need to listen to their voice. They are out there. Their bodies are on the line, right?
What?
Where's your body?
How are their
Is
bodies
it
on
gonna
the...
cake? Come on.
These students know where to go.
Well, don't you know there's a bunch of, Saudi nationals out there with pipe bombs ready to blow them up.
He's been sitting on our asses for 40 years.
They're on the line, yeah.
This is the result.
I walk the line.
If we
I
were doing
walk
what
the
they
line.
asked of us, this wouldn't be happening. These people have better shit to do.
Yeah.
I have better shit to do. This is my
No, you don't.
No, she did should be doing it.
You ain't got nothing better to do. That's why you there.
Y'all decided to become educators.
All right, so I'm actually gonna. We've got more, and I may make this available on the Discord. What ends up happening is it's just more of this is how they actually get all of them into the library. So they take them from here and they say, if you really care about the students, you're going to come into the library. They go into the library, they barricade them in, and they can't get out. Now, this starts off a bunch of riots. The school eventually has to shut down for several days. As they shut down, students start going around with baseball bats and destroying as much of the property as possible. And then we get this incident. There's a number of incidents where students are threatened and or attacked. This student was just attempting to record it.
Welcome to Evergreen.
AC, stop filming. AC, stop filming. AC, stop filming.
If there won't wait, no, leave it running.
Phone down.
Hey, that's not a thing.
Who is the college campus safe for? For you, a white cis man?
Well, to be fair, there's an angry mob right here that's been assaulting me repeatedly.
Assault?
Assault? Yes.
Do you want the definition of assault? What's the definition of assault?
What's good?
What's the definition of assault? What do words mean? I've never spoke English before. I don't know what these words mean.
AC, stop. Stop. AC, don't do that. Come on.
So she's tried to take his phone
one of
from
them
him.
has a baton.
I will fucking fuck you up if you don't turn the fucking phone off.
I will fuck you up.
I'm going. You guys are following me and threatening to fuck
You're
me up.
white.
Why don't you guys wait a second instead of following me like that? You just said you were gonna fuck me up.
I will fuck you up if you don't turn that fucking phone off. Stop
Being chased by a mob of angry people. Should I
What's going on?
call the police or?
What's going on?
They're chasing me and threatening me
Did you do
to
something?
fuck me up. I'm just filming for my production.
Oh, do you Hold on, stay out here. No, come on, stay out here.
Oh, do you want to notice that your friend just hit Naomi and Ellie? Do you want to film that?
Let's talk about what's
Oh,
going on. Yeah.
filming.
no. Your friend hit somebody?
Yeah, here, come outside.
I was filming the whole
No,
time.
Naomi and Ellie's going to beat the shit out of him. He doesn't go. He should leave, obviously.
I didn't hit anyone.
Do you live on campus?
No.
I'll call him. I'm good.
Did you hit someone?
No.
That'd be great right now.
He took somebody's phone?
Someone, I had it on film the whole time. Someone lunged at me, and I pushed her off.
Why were you
May
filming?
I, so what happened
All
is
right,
him and
later.
Nolan Myers were writing
No.
hate speech, and we confronted them.
This is like he's like running for protection. These people's like, hold on, let me make sure that you deserve protection.
Punched Naomi and Ellie a few times.
Okay.
Delete the film.
And they were taping us, and they need to delete it.
Nothing
None of us
over.
consented to being filmed.
It's a public campus.
I didn't consent to being
You need consent to film
filmed.
people. People aren't.
All right. So along the same period of time, Weinstein gets a phone call from the chief of the campus police, and they say, "Where are you right now?" And he said, "Well, I'm at home. Why? Are you coming into work today?" He said, "No, probably not." He said, "Okay, you can't. Don't come in." He asked why, and there were roving bands of students looking for him. Not only were they looking for him and trying to find him in the buildings, they were stopping cars in case he was trying to get out. And they were even stopping the cars, demanding that people open the trunk of their car so they could search and make sure that nobody was trying to sneak him out of the campus. And one of the things that he had said later on was he doesn't know what would have happened if they had found him, and frankly, he doesn't think they know what would have happened, and that's kind of what scares him. So this sudden Lord of the Flies vibe started coming around. He started teaching his classes in an open park, and he did that for a couple of weeks before that was no longer tenable. And eventually, as I said before, the university had to shut down for several days. There was roughly $10,000-$15,000 worth of damage done to the university. 15 students were injured, and fortunately, none of them serious. But all of this in this protest over something that nobody can really understand. When the school finally opened, they ended up having to hold their commencement off campus. They took a stadium. They locked the stadium down. The stadium had metal detectors so they could control exactly who was going in, and everyone had to go through a metal detector process. And the commencement for the graduating class was held in a stadium under National Guard. The National Guard had to also come in and basically clean out the entire campus of all the protesters. As a result of this, Weinstein did, in fact, resign his position. One other professor was fired. The president has remained and is still there today. There is a board, an oversight board that the governor of Washington manages. That board has said that the president has done nothing wrong and that none of this actually even happened. The president went on vacation for the 2-week period that this was happening, just left, gone. Shortly after he was released from the library hostage situation, he was one of the hostages in the library. You can see him there saying, "I'd like to go pee," and they said, "Hold it." So he went on vacation for 2 weeks, comes back, Weinstein resigned, sued the school for $50,000. That tape of them saying that, in fact, they were going to apply pressure and that anyone who didn't agree to the keeping white students out, they were going to find a way to make them pay some kind of social price for. The university now, it's been 3 years, the university is now down by about half its regular attendance. Its revenue is down by more than half. They've had to increase the price on the students just to try to make ends meet. They're failing. So they have been engaging in layoffs, cutting back services, and the general consensus is that there is no way that this university can survive. So that is the, in short, and we do have, actually, we've got Weinstein testifying before Congress, but I think since we're running a little late, Weinstein did testify, let me just see how long that is. If that's 5 minutes, maybe we'll do it. That's 10 minutes. We'll hold on it. But Weinstein was asked to testify before Congress as to what happened and what he thought that the implications were for free speech in this country and for race relations. And he obviously he obviously had a great deal to say. We'll either link to that or it's actually, you can find it if you look on his congressional testimony. So that is the Evergreen State debacle. So I certainly hadn't known about it until I don't know, about 5 or 6 months ago. The liberal media did not carry it. The conservative media ran with it like crazy, and Weinstein was on Fox News a lot. They couldn't get enough of him, and they kept asking him to come on, which he did, which is quite frankly understandable if they're the only ones who listen, and they were.
Yeah, I hate that he was used as a part. The sad thing is we didn't learn anything from this. Weinstein got used as a football. Him and his wife. And we obviously didn't learn anything from this because nothing's changed, right? Nothing has changed. So, us on the left will continue to have to apologize for people like this, and it's just... it's anti-intellectualism at its finest. We talk about... we accuse the right of being anti-intellectual, and they are. But let's not forget that we can be just as anti-intellectual on our side, and it comes from the same place. It comes from that time where we jettison our rationality and our critical thinking ability and give in to emotional responses. And it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you find yourself in. When you do that, you reduce yourself to animals, to a mob mentality, to an irrational, unyielding group of hooligans, of bigots. Yeah. And I think it's important that we... I think it's always important that it should never be conservatives who call us out on our crap. We should be calling ourselves out on our crap. If we rely on the other side to do it, then we are not who we say we are.
I think that's a spectacular point, and I was going to add a lot to it, but I like it enough. I'm going to leave it at that with one minor exception, which is what I found heartening about all this was the notion that we all have so much more alike than unlike. What I found disheartening about it was that, it was so many of the arguments that they used were identical to what I thought were conservative arguments. And it turns out we're all really just as capable of it. So I think there's a lot to unpack in what happened. I think you could unpack this for ages. For me, the most frightening one was the idea that any request for evidence was in and of itself racist.
Racism. That was.
I've seen and heard arguments like that before, and we've got some more footage of that. But we could go on forever with the footage. So I think I'm going to wrap this up. I do want to remind people that we are going to. Let's see. We're going to. If you still have time, I'm going to certainly hit the Discord for a little bit after this. We've got Richard Carrier coming up a week from tomorrow on Bayesian analytics, or the Bayesian analysis, and then we're going to do our next series on woke. We're going to be discussing the grievance studies, which is going to be actually sort of very similar to what we've seen now, minus the stalking professors in the hallways and locking them in the library, kidnapping them.
Yeah, the grievance studies are going to be fun. And then, of course, we will have the very dry and very rational and very critically analyzed discussion of the ontology of gender.
Yes, the ontology of gender. That's going to be in. We have a $50 super chat from the Sinister Porpoise. Please, next on In Time, will you please discuss Jennifer Yaniv? For $50, I think we will absolutely have to do that.
Oh, we can do Jessica Yaniv. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will talk about that.
$50.
I will talk about that basket case for as long as you want. Good God Almighty.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us on this somewhat unusually long episode, but I think it was very much worth it. And we'll be in the Discord in a few minutes. I'm going to need 1 second here. I apologize.
I'll do a little bit of vamp here, right? So so just remember to mark your calendars and everything like that. Do smash that like and subscribe button. Look, share it on your Facebook, right? Share us on your Twitter. Call us out, tag us, do a thing. Let's get like more people that we reach. The better off no one will be, right? So, but I mean, you can always come in and see me dance, right? So, seriously, the thumbs up, all that, it really helps us out, right? And do join the Discord, do come in, right? And tell your friends, it doesn't take that long to share a link. And of course, as always, if you ever need to discuss anything, if you're ever in need of a shoulder or anything else, or something's going on, or you just want to have a chat, my DMs are open. Nick's DMs are open. He might not understand what you're saying.
Titan's DMs are open
for him, but Titan's DMs.
You son of a! Whoa! Oh, that was really unfucking necessary. Wow. This was a pleasant show. I was a little surprised. We had Vox on. It was perfectly civil, and then, oh dear Lord. All right. Well, I suspect I have things under control
nothing but
here
love.
now.
I got nothing. It's coming. It's nothing but love.
Well, thank you very much. All right, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for stalling Vox for time, and thank you, Porpoise, for declaring our next show topic. I am totally on board with you with that one. See you all, and have a good night.